The New York Giants are currently having one of their worst seasons in franchise history, and that's saying a lot, especially with some of the football that has been played over this last decade. Disgusting. But this year is different. This type of suck I don't think has ever been seen before. The offense is completely unwatchable. Having to watch Tommy DeVito, Daniel Jones, and Drew Lock in the same season, you would have thought this fan base has done some sort of war crime in the last decade. This is completely undeserved. I don't think any team has it worse than us. But the majority of the fan base put this type of suck aside. They put it aside. They pushed it as far away as they could so they could even think about it. They looked towards the future. They saw the first pick in striking distance. We had it. All we had to do was lose 2 more games. Let's say we didn't even want a quarterback. They could have drafted whoever they thought was the best player in the draft or traded down and got a lot of draft capital. To lose out on great draft position 2 years in a row. Listen, this year is bad, but nothing was worse than last year. Losing out on Drake May, I thought that dude was a chosen one. I thought that the second we were going to draft him, he was going to grow angel wings. I thought he was going to save this franchise. And maybe he would have, but we'll never know. Because our defense, out of nowhere in November, wanted to start playing football again. Interesting, right? The season's over. Oh yeah, let's screw over our draft position. Where is this in September? Every year. This team forgets how to play football every year from September to mid-November. Then, all of a sudden, wait, we're actually in the NFL. We need to coach up a good game plan. We need to execute. We need to get sacks and stops and, oh my God, throw touchdowns. Why does this happen in November? So then every year, that 2-13 and that potential franchise quarterback goes to 6-11, and then we draft BPA, best player available. And half the time we draft best player available, it's not the best player available. They're usually bums. Majority of the time, they're bums. The results that have been the last couple years aren't even the main reason I'm mad. The main reason I'm mad is because of how bad the process from this regime has been. They could have took a quarterback in a class they felt that was very strong. Even the owner John Mara was saying that Shane and management were telling them how strong this quarterback class was. They could have took McCarthy, Penix, Nix, decided not to, went against their own judgment. They passed on that. And that's fine, but they didn't bring in a quarterback in the offseason at all. Like, let's not include Drew Lock. You can say what you want about the Colts game, but we told Russell Wilson he was going to have a chance to compete for the starting job and that it was Daniel Jones. That was an objective fumble. The second reason this process has just been awful is because the realistic plan that they were going forward with, which meant drafting a quarterback the following year, kind of meant we had to suck. Because this was a 2-quarterback draft going in, as in Shador was the solidified number 1, like preseason, and the number 2 prospect was the potential riser. That was Milroe, Nussmeier, who's going back to college, Ward. One of those guys was projected to soar up the rankings, and it was Ward. It ended up being Ward. But if there's only 2 quarterbacks, the demand is going to be crazy high, so you have to be really bad to land one of those guys. It was either that, or their hopeful but not realistic plan was hoping Daniel Jones turned into a good quarterback, which you saw nothing for 5 years that indicated he was. So that's why I think the plan that they're going forward with has just been a complete disaster. Not only this, but they tried to trade up last year for Drake May, Jaden Daniels, one of those guys, and they couldn't get it done. They knew that trading into the top 3 was a dream. Dreams aren't realistic the majority of the time. So this is why this is just so stupid. If a quarterback is bad enough where you're trying to trade up into the top 3 to draft his replacement, why would you bring in no sort of competition in the offseason, whether that was in days 2 or 3 in the draft, which isn't a great option, but it was an option, or free agency, which there was multiple good options out there. We listed Russ earlier, Darnold, who's playing great. Obviously, he wouldn't be that good here, but there's everything you could point to that said he could at least have been decent here, a decent starter. Winston, who's been decent this year. You always get that Winston, like that stupid pick every now and again, but he's still a decent quarterback. Guys that you can win some games with. We also fumbled the Tyrod situation last year. We could have had him back, but he felt disrespected when we played DeVito over him, and I understand. Tyrod's a really good quarterback. DeVito should have never been played over him if the goal was to win games. So I can 100% understand why Tyrod was extremely mad with this team. The one thing I'll give this team is I don't think the talent on the roster really is shown by the record that we have this year. I think we're more of a 5, 6, 7 win team rather than the 2, 3, 4, which, believe me, I know that's not great. But the draft implications with a 7-win team compared to a 2-win team are significant. We're talking the first or second pick rather than like the 13th, 14th. Basically what I'm trying to say is the moves we've made in the last year have put us in QB hell. Like, this is the definition of it. But I'm not giving these guys a break. They put us in this position, and now they have to reap the negative benefits of the decisions that they've made. Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, but more specifically Joe Schoen, have put us in a position where no matter what we kind of do now, we're probably going to end up losers. If they don't take a quarterback in the draft, they're going to have to go the free agency route. But how are you going to sell a Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston QB room to ownership and the fan base? That's a really difficult sell. Or are you going to do what everyone wants to do, including the fan base and our owner, and trade up to one in one of the weakest QB classes in the last 15 years, giving up premium draft capital for a bad quarterback class? They put us in a position where no matter what we do, we're probably going to fail. Like, it's the unfortunate truth, but it's the truth. I think the only way to right this ship is to fire everybody. GM, coach, all of John Mara's nephews and brothers. Get rid of all those guys, hire a new regime, and let them knock this team down and build it from the ground up. Because that's what it truly needs. It's not an awfully constructed roster, but it's a poorly constructed roster. And sometimes that's worse. Because poorly can win you a couple games, awful kind of can't. Poorly constructed rosters is what is probably going to keep Joe Schoen here 4 years and what kept Gettleman here 4 years. Because they weren't awful rosters, they just were not good. No clear direction for the future. No Super Bowl title contention in the future. Like, no high-level ceiling. It's all floor teams. Just teams that can win you 6 games, and we can't even do that now. So what's the point of having them? It's just time to blow it up. We gotta get new people in here. Overall, that's the video. I just had to get a little rant out. I'm just extremely mad with the way that this regime has come in and has executed their process of getting to the promised land. We've been given a 3-year body of work to analyze, and I think they've done a really bad job. A lot of the moves they make are counterintuitive. They tried to rebuild and win at the same time. You just can't do that. There's a few outliers, but you don't build contenders off the outliers. You build them on what has been shown to give you a consistent winner. And we're not doing that. So, until then, I think we're going to suck. That's the end of the video, seriously this time. I love y'all, and I'll see you on the next video.